Here are 5 money lessons that I learned in my early 20s that allowed me to build an $80 million creative agency and how you can apply them too. Make sure you stick around for point number 4 because that might blow your mind. So here's tip number 1. It's delegation. Let me expand what this means. In most of our creative pursuits, whether you're a freelancer or a solopreneur, a person who has one employee, you're going to essentially trade your time and your skill for money. And this is how most of us grow. And there's a finite amount of time in which you can sell. You could work weekends, you can work really long hours. And if you keep doing that for too long, which is what I did, you'll burn out. This happens to all of us. So the only way that you can scale beyond being a solo operator is to delegate, to give away some of the work that you're doing. And this is how you're able to not only create opportunities for other people, but how you're able to grow your capacity. And this is really important. There are some ways I would recommend you do it and some things for you to avoid. When you're looking for someone to hire, and this is a very tricky thing, a question I get asked a lot is, how do you hire your first employee? The thing I would look at is make a list of essential and non-essential work. Put in all the roles that you play within the function of your company. And you're going to soon realize that things that you previously believed to be essential are actually not essential. Let me give you this example. People hired me to do design work. So you would think naturally design is the essential things that I did. And let me explore this with you. So let's say I was hired to design a logo. I was able to then hire people who were at a lower skill level than me, generate different ideas to help us work through the creative process, and through art direction and teaching the person the way I see the world, the decisions that I make, I'm able to elevate their work to a point in which it would pass as my own. So when you realize this, you start to understand that the design, the creative work that you do is not essential. And so you're probably thinking to yourself, what is the essential work then? So here's the clue. Who has the relationship with the client and who needs to be that person? So it turns out clients hire people that they trust and that they believe can get the work done. They're not as concerned as you might originally believe as to who does the work themselves. They're not as concerned about who does the work, more that it gets done on time and on budget, and that's your role. So as long as you're able to deliver work at the standard in which you hold yourself and accountable to, you can hire other people to help you. And that is lesson number 1. Money lesson number 2 is to shift from an hourly based pricing model to one that's based on project fees. Now, why would you want to do this? Well, when you're selling units of time, what is it that you're really saying is valuable? You're saying your time. And most clients do not care at all how long it takes you to do something. What they do care is what they get or the outcome or results that your work and effort achieves for them. And so when you sell units of time, you're inviting the client to manage your time, which is not something that any one of us wants to do. The classic image of the overbearing client sitting over your shoulder, hand on top of your mouse hand saying, I prefer you to do it this way. Let's look at some real world examples of when this works and when it doesn't work. Whenever I'm working with a contractor who charges me hourly, I'm really getting stressed out because I'm wondering, are they taking too long for lunch? Or why are they doing it this way when they should be using these tools instead? You see what's happening here? You're creating anxiety in the client's mind about what it is that you're doing with your time. So if it takes you longer or shorter, they're concerned either way. And so this is why we need to shift away from hourly based pricing more towards project or value based pricing. And if you want to deeper dive on that, check out this video where I talk about it at length. And that's money lesson number 2. Money lesson number 3 is focus, focus, focus. We're creative people. We like to do lots of different things, and repetition makes us dull in our mindset. You might have even heard from your teachers, you want to show a breadth of work, lots of different skills. You might feel compelled to provide an end-to-end service from beginning to end, as they say, soup to nut solution. And this makes us really happy, but it makes it really hard to market. It makes it even more difficult to get any real expertise and authority in what it is that we're doing. As an example, when I first started, I did design work. I would design your logo, I would design your brochure, and I did literally do this for a bank, and I would do some animation and editing. There's basically nothing you could call me for that I wouldn't say yes to. And it was so difficult to feel confident that I knew what I was doing, because every time I was doing it for the first time again. And this came to clarity for me when I was working on a big main title job for Eraser, the movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Somehow I got the opportunity to animate the titles for this movie. And the client, Kyle Cooper, RGA LA, they were really nervous that I wasn't able to do this. It was my first film title job, natural. So they sent over an animator to supervise and do some of the work with me. And the things that this person was able to show me made me realize something. It was like a holy F moment for me. The basic things that this animator was doing, I should have known, but I didn't because I was spread so thin in trying to do all things for all people. Later that night, I turned to my girlfriend, now my wife, and I said, you know what? Here's the thing. We're doing web design, logo design, design, print design, and motion design, I feel like the field that's going to be the most creatively nourishing and rich for me in every aspect of that word is going to be in motion design. Are you okay if we take the company in this direction? Now, she's a super supportive person. She wasn't going to challenge me, but she saw the truth in that as well. We can get excited about this. The field is expanding. It's trending. There's a hungry market for this, and there's relatively low competition. So we decided to abandon all the other projects, strip them from our website, and say, from that point forward, Blind as a design company was only going to focus on motion design. This one decision, very important, in year one of our business is what Blair Enns calls making the difficult business decision. It's a decision that so many people avoid. They're afraid to go down a niche, and this is not even niche enough based on the things that I teach today, but it was at least us getting rid of a lot of different things. If you want to have a breakthrough, you have to have a powerful force to literally break through. And in physics, we know that pressure equals force divided by area. So pressure is you pushing forward. Area is the number of things you focus in on. And if you just reduce the amount of area that you cover, the same force can have a powerful breakthrough effect. That's lesson number 3. I just want to take this moment to express my genuine gratitude and appreciation for all of you. When the last time we asked you to comment and like, you did so, and it really jacked the numbers up for the algorithm. So I'm going to ask you again. And plus, when I read these things and you testify about how valuable and transformative the channel's been for you, even the cold-hearted robot in me sheds a little tear. There's a little emotional thing that's happening here. So I appreciate it. Don't forget to like and comment. Here we are at lesson number 4, and you're here for this, right? Because this is going to be the mind-blowing moment that's going to transform your life. Here we go. Money lesson number 4, learning how to have the money conversation. Now, if you're a creative person, if you didn't grow up with accountants and lawyers, talking about money is really uncomfortable because socially it's kind of awkward and taboo to talk about money. When we talk about money, it seems like we're bragging. If we're talking about money, it seems like we're greedy or selfish or unethical, or all we care about is money. So there's a lot of negative opinions thrown upon people who talk about money. Sometimes we do it, and sometimes we're the victim of it. So it's very unnatural for us to talk about money. But those who don't talk about money don't make it. So learning how to have the money conversation can be transformative. So the first thing that we do is whenever we talk to a client, we delay talking about the money because it creates the most stress for us. As it turns out, stress is not caused by the things you say, it's caused by the things you don't say. So let's think about this for a little bit. And I've given this example before. If you have a friend, a college friend who calls you up and says, hey, I need a place to stay. And you're like, cool, but I wonder how my girlfriend's going to handle this, whatever. So you allow this person to stay. And what you thought was going to be 1 or 2 days turns into 4 days, 5 days. And your girlfriend's like, when are you going to get rid of Jimmy? Because this is impeding on our life. And I didn't realize Jimmy's such a slob and he was going to be here for so long. And you're feeling like super stressed out. Like, I got to talk to my friend Jimmy, but we said we'd always be bros and I'd take care of him. But at the same time, I have to honor this new relationship and respect the relationship that I'm in with my girlfriend. So the stress is actually caused by you not saying something. Now, a whole different approach could be, hey, Jimmy, yeah, it's cool if you stay, but I need to make sure how long you're going to stay here. This is critical because I have a girlfriend and I want to be mindful and respectful of her time and her space. And Jimmy says, well, Chris, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 days. Well, 4 or 5 days is going to be the maximum, okay? Like we said, ride or die, bros for life kind of thing, but you have to honor and respect that. Are you cool with that? And so you see, if we bring this right up front, it eliminates a lot of the stress we're going to feel in the back end. And so the same thing is happening when you're talking about money. Whenever there's a transaction between a buyer and a seller, you're the seller, the client is a potential buyer. You both need to know one thing. The most important thing, I think, above all other things is what? Price. I need to know what the budget is because you can talk a good talk. You can be the world's most charming person. You can have the greatest portfolio, body of work, references. You can lay them all out on a table, but none of that's going to matter unless I can afford you. If the solution matches the size of the problem, at least my perception of it. This is really important. So the client is waiting for you to tell them what it's going to cost, and you're waiting for the client to tell you what they're willing to pay. So it's a chicken and egg situation. But what's happening as the conversation goes longer and longer, even though it feels like you're building rapport and building goodwill, you're creating anxiety, and anxious people don't buy. At least they don't buy at the high price. And this is going to hurt you in your business. Whether you're a bricklayer, carpenter, if you're designing logos, if you're doing branding, you need to talk about the money, and you need to talk about it relatively early. And there's some rules about this we're not going to get into in this video, but learning how to have the money conversation, to know that people who are good at talking about money is a sign of good business acumen, not a sign of poor manners. We need to understand this difference, okay? So oftentimes what I'll do is say, as the clients are talking about everything that they want, I'll say, hold on, this is fantastic. I can see you're very excited about working together. What I need to know is what kind of budget ballpark are we in? And you can throw that out there. And the clients are going to say, well, Chris, you're the professional. Why would we know what it's going to cost? You should should tell us. You're fine. So here's what you should say. And you can write this down. Maybe you should write this down. For clients like you and for projects like this, we charge somewhere between X and Y. I'm going to give them a range. So I'm going to bracket between two big numbers, and the numbers need to be relatively far apart. So the low number, I suggest you talk about what your high price might be. So let's say like the most anybody's ever paid you is $20,000. You can scale this number up or down depending on your individual circumstances. What I would say is between $20,000 to $35,000. Big gap on price bracketing is so they're going to hear two numbers. So even if they hire you for $20,000, they're going to think they got a bargain just because you're using price anchoring here. Now you can level up and take this to like the black belt level. You can start with a higher number first. You can say, for clients like you, for projects like this, we charge anywhere between $35,000, pause, and $20,000. So like, whoa, okay. So now you're anchoring with a higher price first. It feels a little unnatural to say. We're not used to hearing this. But if you do this and pause, they're like, wow, holy cow, this is a lot more money than I thought. And then you say $20,000, they're going to say, oh, what a relief. My gosh, we can afford 20. It's because we're contextual learners. We don't know if something's big, small, too hot or too cold, just like in Goldilocks, until we have something cold, hot, or too big or too small. Through the context, we understand this is a good fit for me. This is also the reason why many companies provide 3-tiered pricing. This is especially famous from Apple. There's the good, the better, and the best. And what economists and accountants already know that you don't is most people, I think around 80%, pick the middle option because they rationalize in their mind. The lowest price one is too weak for me and I'm not a cheapskate, yet the highest price option is too premium, too luxury, too much of a beast. I don't want to buy that version. The middle option is the best. And by providing either price bracketing or price options, you're allowing the client to make the decision to work with you versus comparison shopping you against someone else. Now, these are very complex concepts. I hope you got some value from that. But once you start to learn to have the money conversation, to be comfortable talking about money, you can actually start making it. And that's why this is the banger money lesson number 4. I don't want to overwhelm you, but I want to give you this bonus tip about how to talk about money. And there's a couple like little rules of thumb that you can follow to have a more natural conversation about money so that you can make more of it. A couple different things. For small projects, for clients who keep knocking on your door and they can't afford you, I would bring up the conversation about money as early as possible. After the greetings, hello, we're interested in talking to you, I would just metaphorically raise my hand and say, before we go too deep here, I just need to make sure you have somewhere north of $15,000 to spend on a project like this. And this way, if it's not a good fit for them, it's way out of the ballpark, they can just end the conversation. You know what, Chris, we appreciate you bringing this up front because there's no way we can pay anything like that. You say thank you, you can refer someone, or you can say goodbye. That's all fine. So you want to bring up the money really early if it's a relatively small budget to you, not to the client, and you keep getting clients saying it's too expensive. Here's rule of thumb number 2, which is, when is it opportunistic or advantageous for you to talk about money later in the process? Well, if the project has an undefined scope and it's going to be massive, first of all, there's no way you can figure out what this is going to cost you. So by guessing early on, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Generally speaking, when we're doing consultant work, when we're doing brand strategy that has multiple deliverables, if we're talking about building an e-commerce website where there's too many layers, parts, and pieces to it, I'm not going to price it then and there. What I'll do is I'll do a bid, or I'll verbally say in general orders of magnitude, a GOM bid, general orders of magnitude. You can look that up. The military uses this. And the numbers that you're going to give are in 10x. We can give you a website for $10,000, $100,000, or $1 million. Whereabouts are you in this? And just be quiet. Let the client say something. This is a general orders of magnitude kind of bid. And this is very important. So the clients are going to say, well, we're not in the 10,000 because we're not cheap. We're not in the million because we're not crazy, but somewhere between 100,000 and a million is where we're going to be. So they'll say something like that, somewhere between 100 to a million. This is an opportunity. This is an invitation for you to probe further. See, we're still applying the same range finding, price bracketing concept, but delivered in a different way. So now you have some information. So it would behoove you to say, are you closer to the million or to the 100,000? I'm getting a little bit more information from the prospect now. And depending on how they say this and how you read it, they're going to say, well, if we were shy of a million, we'd probably be okay with that. And then I would just follow up with, how shy of a million are you? 100,000 or 200,000? Where are we here? And then they're going to say, well, probably in the $800,000 range. I said, this is fantastic. And oftentimes they'll volunteer even more information to you to say, I have discretionary spending buying power if the budget is under $850,000. Chief marketing officers and chief branding officers have a budget limit where they don't need to get approval from the board or from the president, and they can sign off on. This is good information for you, because if you go $1 over that, they got to send it up the chain and a whole committee gets involved, and you want to avoid that. So now I've learned if I build a bid somewhere in the $850,000 range, the clients are going to be okay. Now notice, as we're talking about money here, we're not talking about the hours or even the deliverables. We're just getting a sense of how big the scope is in the client's mind. And those are some bonus rules of thumb on how to guide you about talking about money. Okay, here we are, number 5. And this is probably my personal favorite. It might not be like, oh my God, Chris just blew my mind, but here we go. It's to invest, because in order for you to make money, you've heard this expression, you got to spend money. And as Sean Cannell has said, scared money don't make money. Being an entrepreneur means a couple different things, but one of the things it means is taking on risk. The more risks you take on, the more potential profit that you can have. Peter Drucker famously said, in business, all profit comes from risk. I'd like to add, all profit comes from taking on risk, taking on responsibility, and creating value to others. So if I may be so bold to add a little addendum to that. What do I mean by investing? So the first thing that you do when you're scaling your business is you invest the profit that you have into people, because without people, a service company doesn't have more. You invest money in people because in order for you to grow, you have to have more people so that you have greater resources and ability to scale what it is that you do. When you invest in these people, you're hiring people, you're giving them job opportunities, you're going to need to train them up and build systems and processes to help them do the job better. You're going to invest in tools and equipment. And this is an important thing. When we were first starting out, I tried to buy the best computers and equipment that I could afford for the people working, because I knew it was a great return on investment. It always boggled my mind when I walked into an agency that had 20 or 30 people and they're running on outdated equipment, janky monitors, and their software package, like they're sharing licenses. It didn't make any sense to me, because what you're saying is this human's potential is artificially capped by the speed or the lack of speed of the hardware and software and the tools that they're using. First of all, that creates for a horrible employee experience, but you're really saying, let's take the Ferrari out, but let all the air out of the tires. It doesn't make sense to me. So you need to invest in people and understand that by allowing them to do their best work, by providing the right environment, the tools, you're going to enhance their joy and happiness in creating the work. And as they say, happy design comes from happy people from California. They don't really say that, but you know the campaign. So that's you investing in people. The glaring omission so far has been, what about investing in yourself? Alex Hormozi talks about this in one of his videos. He quit his job. He was on the fast track to becoming a partner or whatever as a consultant in an industry when he started his own business. And he knew his fallback plan, which would assure him to make $100,000, was to drive Uber and to strip at night for clubs. And he says it all seriousness. And if you've ever seen Hormozi, he's one jack beefcake. So of course, him being a male stripper would work out for him. But he said once he acquired skills and learned how to do sales, his fallback number was now $250,000 or something like that. And when he learned how to do marketing and to do sales at scale, his worth was $500,000 plus. He will say something like this: after your living expense and your rent and food, invest as much money in your self-development as possible until you make so much money it's no longer possible. This is a profound concept, because what you're doing is you're raising the basement of what your value is in the world. The more marketable compounded skills that you acquire, the greater the basement, the larger the cushion you can fall back on. It's one of the things that kept me in the game for so long, because as an entrepreneur, you're going to face many dark days when you think things aren't working. And there's going to be this little angel sitting on your side, or maybe it's the devil tempting you to say, you can quit now, you can go work for someone and you can get paid $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 a year, because that is your market rate. That's what you're worth. The money lesson number 5 really is to always invest in yourself, to invest in skills that are marketable and that can be compounded. This is truly how you build up your net worth. And the most beautiful thing is they can take away your house, they can take away your cars, they can take away your equipment and your software, but they can't take away what you keep up here. And that's lesson number 5. That's it from me, your 5 money lessons. I hope you found this to be valuable. And if you have a specific question that you want me to answer, put it in the comment below and make sure you get right to the question. Please, for the grace of God, don't tell me your whole life story. I want to know, but not in the questions, because I have to read lots of questions and comments. And I hope you got some value. See you next time. Bye.